There's a second set of characters that you also encounter who are across the Narrow Sea on an entirely different continent. And that is Viserys Targaryen, the son of the king that Jaime slew. And his sister is Daenerys.
Viserys Targaryen has spent his entire life trying to get back the Iron Throne, which he believes was stolen from his family.
When they write the history of my reign, sweet sister, they will say it began today.
Daenerys is being wedded off to Khal Drogo, who is the lord of the Dothraki, who are a nomadic warrior tribe.
Khal Drogo is a savage beast. He's a killing fighting machine.
He's this huge, formidable creature, so she's completely and utterly petrified of him.
Viserys doesn't have any experience or real understanding or knowledge of the Dothraki people. He just sees them in terms of their numbers, and Khal Drogo just in terms of a warrior.
He feels he has this right, this right to the throne, and that's what's taken him through, and that's what's given him his strength.
He is such a frustrated, repressed individual, and he has been vicious to his sister.
Have you forgotten who you are? Look at you. You do not command the dragon. I am Lord of the Seven Kingdoms.
Meanwhile, far to the north, beyond the Wall, which is the boundary of the Seven Kingdoms, in lands of perpetual ice and cold, a supernatural threat is stirring after centuries of sleep.
The things you speak of, they've been gone for thousands of years.
They wasn't gone, old man. They were sleeping. And they ain't sleeping no more.
Game of Thrones is a fantasy world, and there is magic, but it's not about monsters, it's about humans.
Although there is magic, it's peripheral, but it's there, which makes it believable, accessible.
We have created a world that is, on one hand, very recognizable. At the same time, it has been peppered with fantasy elements. And the way those two things come together is going to fascinate people.
The palette is varied and fascinating. You've got the northernmost kingdoms being covered with snow and all this harsh landscape. You've got sort of the middle kingdoms, which are lush, and then you've got southern, sort of dry, arid, deserty sort of places.
We had researched probably 14 different countries before we settled on Northern Ireland and Malta.
The decision to shoot in Northern Ireland was predicated on being able to find a wide variety of locations very close to Belfast.
There are mountains, and there are fertile green fields, and there are beautiful old-growth forests, and there's just such a range of environments.
The great thing about Belfast is you've got the paint hall we've been filming, which is just the biggest set you've ever seen. And then they find these incredible locations.
Certain areas just lend themselves, they just look so spectacular that that if you could get the story into them, that would reflect amazing Irish landscape.
Gods, this is country. I've half a mind to leave them all behind and keep going.
What we've tried to do is be as eclectic in our sources and our choices of references for everything, whether it's costumes, props, set, locations we've chosen.
All the worlds that I adore, I've managed to kind of go into and pluck out bits that I think have become appropriate for all our different worlds that we're trying to create.
We went a lot of Far Eastern, bit of Moroccan, African, traditional medieval, but not trying to go for that ye olde English look. But if you mix it up enough and don't use too much of one culture, then it works.
Gemma was very clear that she wanted to give every world its own distinct feel. So when you're at Castle Black, you know you're at Castle Black. You're not going to confuse it for Pentos, and you're not going to confuse it for Winterfell.
The Winterfell of any of them is probably the closest to a kind of traditional Northern European world with kind of thick, strong castle walls and big stone. And I just really looked at the kind of northern castles, etc., of Europe.
The north is a little bit Scandinavian, but really that's the closest you get to grungy, old-fashioned medieval, because it's dour and dark and nasty.
The north basically have to clothe themselves with products they can get within a 50-mile radius. There's not much trading, so they tend to wear greys and blues, quite murky colours. It's very leather-based, very practical, lots of fur.
It's a direwolf.
There are no direwolves south of the wall.
No, there are 5.
The direwolf's not been seen for many years around Winterfell, and so it's kind of an omen, a dead direwolf that's just littered the birth of pups. And, it's a massive creature. The direwolf is our banner, our sign.
There are 5 pups. One for each of the Stark children. We were meant to have them.
It's obvious to John at that point what this means. The direwolf is the sigil of the Stark house, that there's 5 of them, that there's 5 Stark children. This is clearly a sign.
These are all Inuit dogs, which is a breed that was developed basically to have a dog that looks like a wolf. The dogs are supposed to rip people's throat out and eviscerate people. We teach them to do things that will make them look like they're attacking. And then otherwise we have the ravens, and they're actually as trainable as a dog. They're a lot of fun. Several times we were having them do big flying scenes.
Lord Commander, a raven.
Castle Black is the furthest north that we go at the moment, and sits at the bottom of the ice wall. And it's supposed to be grim. You get the feeling the whole thing's gone to rack and ruin.
Castle Black is historically supposed to be a place that was quite grand, and it's sort of faded and fallen into disrepair. It's filthy, it's freezing cold. The mess hall is foul, very, very brutal, very sparse.
I did some research on people who lived way up in the Antarctica. Some of it was sort of Eskimos and things where they live on whale blubber and they're all pale and everything is white. And so all the food is just very kind of basic, sort of colourless stews. The intention was to build it as somewhere where they could work and not be constantly worrying about CGI and green screen and all the rest of it. And I think we've been relatively successful on that.
You walk into Castle Black and there it is, and there's the wall, and there's the lift for the wall, and there's all the things you've read about. And it's very easy to get immersed in that world with such incredible sets and detail put in.
Well, Lord Snow, it appears you're the least useless person here.
We worked with a wonderful fight director called Buster, and we didn't have much time to learn the fights, but Buster was brilliant, and you can pretend that you're a hard warrior.
I was pretty fortunate with these guys. They're all pretty athletic young lads, so I didn't really have to do much training with them. They all seem to grasp it pretty well, you know, the gift of youth.
Yield. One of the biggest challenges, I think, for Michelle Clapton in The Night's Watch was to be able to tell you something about the different backgrounds of these people by the costume that they had on, and the costume had to be black.
It's not a uniform because they're not funded enough to do that anymore. The higher people will bring clothes with them that are probably more suitable. The others actually often arrive in a thin jacket. That's all they have.
Everybody knew what this place was, and no one told me. No one but you.
Tyrion relates to Jon Snow because Jon is the black sheep of his family as well. Tyrion is treated like a bastard, so they have that in common.
My Lord of Lannister, I say, entertain you while you eat. I can sing your father's victory at King's Landing.
Nothing would more likely ruin my supper.